Hi there, Brute for ICU Gaming here. Just wanted to make this small video compilation to smoothen the transition of my own PvX guild into organised World v World play. I'll start off by saying I'm no expert. All information in these videos has been gained through observation and theory crafting done over the last 3 months, pretty much viewing the Twitch, YouTube streams, various other media of the high-end organised World v World guilds. So in this first section I want to go over the builds and the gearing, and that comes down to when speaking to my own guildies and people from many other PvX guilds in comparison to the players who really stand out in the high-end World v World guilds. There's quite a distinct difference, a variation in the phrases they use. The standard approach, which I'm commonly used to, I mean, it's so familiar hearing people talk about their build, my build, I do this, I use this trait because, and they'll give you all various reasons as to why that is great for their build and what they do. Whereas when you speak to the top World v World guild players, there's a very big difference in the way they spec. They spec purely for group builds. They have very little ability in a 1v1 environment or on smaller scale. They're designed completely around keeping the group going, keeping their guild mobile, keeping the conditions cleared. They all have specific tasks with support in mind, and by that I mean that they're relying heavily on the team structure as opposed to individual capability. Now don't get me wrong, these guys are very experienced players, you can never take that away from them. They're high action per minute players, very good at what they do, and that is always going to be a difference between us and them. It will take a while to get to that level, so in no way am I detracting from their ability, but I believe it's this team mindset which enables these guilds to farm 2 and 3 times their number unorganised individual type players. So in this first section, this first video, I want to elaborate on the basic core guild setup, how they're running their classes, and what kind of traits and runes they're using, and hopefully people get a better grasp of some of the synergies that they're using. Okay, so onto the overall guild build. Most of these guilds are comprised quite heavily of melee warriors and guardians. A tight, heavy-hitting melee ball is the core of any guild group, any organised guild group. Okay, so we'll start off with the warrior, and a basic gear format for that would be full power, toughness, vitality, armor, keep the survivability up, it's a high HP pool as base anyway. Full berserker trinkets, get some damage in there, your precision, your crit rate, keep the power going on all stats, and I've seen quite a lot of people using knight weapons. Reason for that, more toughness, more power, and extra precision on there. It's a nice top up to keep that crit rate. Okay, so weapons wise, all warriors run hammer, and they run warhorn and sword. Okay, reasons for that being Earthshaker, your adrenaline ability on the hammer, that is what creates kill zones, that's what disables the enemy. Quick recharge on it, constantly usable, and you know that's going to catch people out. You can only have so many stun breakers. If you have 3 or 4 warriors chaining this, constantly using it in the fight, people are going to get stunned and trapped in the AoE wells. Okay, and then onto your secondary weapons. Warhorn, absolute must. Your blast finisher there on call to arms. Also a nice vigor for your endurance regen, and weakens enemy. Okay, so the 50% fumble unrestricted, that's seriously underrated in all kinds of group combat. You've got charge there, also cures some conditions, the movement impeding ones, crippled, immobilized, whatever that may be, and your sword skill too. Excellent mobility on that. The uses for this, I mean, you can gain ground if you're falling behind your commander, you can leap out of combat if you're in trouble just by deselecting your target and leaping into a safe zone, or you can catch down an enemy that's flagging as they flee away. Heal skills, varies completely dependent on the individual's preference. I've seen each one of them used. Heal Surge for the big heals based on your adrenaline, and the healing signet. Bad against spike damage, but it's sustained healing throughout a fight, so you're staying fairly high on your already high HP pool. Elite skill, banner, battle standard. You're going to want these to keep your group up. There will be the event where you lose people within your party. If you can set some kind of chain up between the warriors, whereas for instance I would be banner 1, the first person that goes down I use mine and call it. Second time someone goes down, the next warrior takes over. Just more survivability for your group in those events where people do get caught out if they're getting stunned by the opponents and get caught in the wells. Okay, so the build we're going to look at, now bear in mind people will probably say but this is crap DPS, or I have a much better build than that. Try and get your mindset away from the individual person. It's all about group utility, keeping the group going. The damage comes for the group, the survivability comes for the group. You have no specific task. You are all down to keeping everybody up, keeping the ball moving. Okay, so looking at the first thing would be the runes. Soldier's runes, vitality and toughness. Again, more survivability with you, but the main thing for the synergy is the skill 6 there. So shouts remove a condition, and that's where it all comes into play with your build. There will be minor variations to this. Again, it's down to personal preference. The main thing is the 30 in tactics, but you're going to need a wee bit of self-survivability as well. So looking at the first tree, which is your 20 in defense, okay? So Dogged March, that there reduces the duration on skills that are going to slow you down. You're a mob, you're cripple, and you're chilled. You want to get rid of those as quickly as possible. So that there, absolutely ideal. 33% reduction on those, so keeps you going in the fights. And Cleansing Ire, you're going to see just a wee bit further on in this build how easy it is to build adrenaline. So every time you use your adrenaline, encouraging you to use that stun, encouraging you to use your F1 on the sword to immobilize targets and just keep them locked down. Every time you do that, you're going to be removing conditions for yourself. So again, all about the constant movement of you and the group, and then on to your 30 in tactics. So the first thing, lung capacity, reducing the recharge on shouts, and you see here I've selected 2 shouts. Some people will run with 3, like a wee bit of extra survivability in there, so I've taken balance stance. Stability is nice to have when you're pushing into a danger zone, you're trying to get out, that's invaluable. Although as I said, people will run 3 shouts for the increase. You've got, for great justice there, shout on a low recharge and shake it off. Again, more condition removal, and these are giving you extra adrenaline due to traits later on in the build. Quick breathing, it's all about your warhorn, reducing the recharge on those. More blasts, more condition removal on that. Okay, and the last one is vigorous shouts. So every time you use a shout, bearing in mind you've got them on a shorter recharge, okay, every time you use a shout you're going to heal your group. So every 20 seconds you're going to have 2 heals. Multiplying that by the warriors across your overall build is nice healing on the move, and they're also removing conditions through the soldier runes as well. So you're encouraged to use these situationally, but as often as you possibly can. Keep everyone going with these. Okay, and then on to 20 in discipline. Inspiring shouts, so you're using adrenaline. You're gaining adrenaline when you use a shout. So not only are you healing, you're gaining adrenaline and you're removing conditions. It's all done passively, so you're not really having to think about it. It's skills you would be using normally. Massive group buffs, and that's going to pick up everybody in your party. If you're running less than 5, then there is a floating buff for someone else in a different melee party. So as you see there, you use those 2 skills, you're up to half adrenaline. In combat, obviously, that'll be maintained and keep increasing. And then finally in there, mobile strikes, movement skills, break, immobilize. Just another thing to keep you active, keep you moving. Main part of any build on a warrior, in my opinion, is fast hands. You want to have that quick recharge on the weapon swap. More stuns, more blasts, more condition removal, more leaps, and that seems to be the way that the majority of warriors are built for serious organised group play. So the second half of your melee ball is going to be comprised of the Guardian class, absolutely essential in every single group you have within your guild setup. Ideally you would have two of these, one of each type, a healer support and a buff support styled Guardian. Gear wise, you're going to want full power, toughness, vitality, armor and weapons. Reason for that being you have a very low HP pool as base, so you want to get that right up there. And Celestial Trinket seems to be a favour among them for the mixed stats. Nice boost to your crit damage, you've got the extra condition damage for your passive and active burning there, and you want a wee bit of healing power across your Guardians. A lot of people aren't aware that the staff 4 skill, your Empower, has an amazing 1-to-1 ratio on your healing power. Okay, I'll elaborate on the first build a wee bit later on the healer support as to why that's important. Okay, similar to the warriors, you're going to want soldier runes on those, and again it's for that 6 skill, the shouts, remove a condition, as well as the extra toughness and vitality on there. Okay, so the first build I'm going to go over is your healer support. Okay, so it's 30 Valor, 30 Honor, and the last one it kind of varies. You can spend that last 10 points how you wish, although in this build here I've put 10 in virtues. Okay, so on the Valor tree, your first trait, strength in numbers, nice passive group buff, extra 150 toughness based on the level, okay, and that's for your nearby allies. Okay, you are looking at retributive armor. Again, this one can be changed, it's just a wee bit of extra precision to give you some more crit rate. On this build, weapon wise, every Guardian should have a staff, without a doubt. Your final skill there, Line of Warden, that's an absolute killer. People try to run away, you block them, you trap people in kill zones, and likewise if you're having to flee, drop it behind you and it helps you get out of there. Empower, excellent group buff. That might, and with this build also a self heal. Okay, you've got an extra heal on the 2 plus a wee bit of damage to be used in combat, and as I said, this one you would go with the great sword. The reason this one would have a great sword and the second build, the buff support, wouldn't, is this skill too. When you go up against another group, you use this, they will have retaliation. You're going to hit a lot of people, you're going to take a fair bit of damage back for that if they have it up across the board. So the self-healing on this build will counter it, as I'll elaborate on in just a second. So back to the build, altruistic healing, as discussed, the self-healing. Every time you use a boon on an ally, you get a self-heal. So your shouts here, your stand your ground and your hold the line, you're putting 2 buffs, protection and regen, over 5 people. It's also removing a condition through the shouts on the soldier runes. You are going to get 10 multiplied by whatever your heal is. And likewise, stand your ground. When you're engaging in combat, you want to put this up. Get your stability up, get your group safe. They're not going to get any control effects on them unless the boon gets stripped. At the same time, you're converting conditions to boons through a trait I will show you in a second, and the soldier runes are kicking in as well. The third skill on this build, I've got save yourself. Draw all conditions for allies, give yourself boons, more self-healing, and as discussed, the altruistic healing. When you use your staff for the empower, you're putting might on nearby allies. Test this, you'll see just how much it heals yourself. Okay, so it keeps you going, keeps your HP topped up, and at the same time you've got these shouts in here. The elite on this build would be your Tome of Courage. Reason for that being, like the warrior banner, when you go into combat you set up a chain. So your Guardian 1 would be book 1 for instance. So as you engage, activates it, and you've got the big heal there. As you see, you can just spam heal the group as they fight. Big heals coming in, and you have other skills on there as well. Full skill on 5, takes ages to load up, but it's still nice, a full heal for everyone there. Okay, so that's the way they run. Heal skill, shelter's nice, you get that block, helps you get out of damage. Once it's happened, you're kind of left a bit struggling. You have to top up your HP with your shouts and your empower. Okay, so that's the way I would run the healer support build. Back to the traits. On your honor line, superior area, if that's how you pronounce it, reduce recharge on shouts. You're going to want that to synergize with your soldier runes. So you see there, you've got these down to 24 seconds and 28 seconds respectively, a wee bit higher on save yourself because it's such a powerful skill. Again, breaks stuns and clears conditions from everyone in your party, and a floating buff if you're running the 4 that I recommended in the previous class. Two-handed mastery, you're going to want a reduction. All guardians will run two-handed weapons, so this is a must. Get those skill recharges down. You've got your skills, your empower, you're down to 16 seconds, your whirling wrath, your big damage down to 8 seconds, and your pull, which is a killer as well. You go in, you engage, activate that, 5 targets, immediately pop it again, and you can pull people into the kill zone, okay? And the final one, Pure of Voice. Now this is what synergizes with your soldier runes. Every single time you use a shout, a condition will be converted to a boon. Okay, so you're using that. One condition from 5 players, which includes yourself, will be removed through your soldier runes. Another one will be converted to a boon. The boon you've just converted on them will then heal you through altruistic healing. Okay, and you're getting the momentum through that. You keep going and you're keeping your party cleansed. Nice crit damage on this as well through the just passively through your Valor tree, which keeps you alive. And then finally on here, I've taken Consecrated Ground, which wouldn't work with a 3 shout build. Consecration skills use ground target, and really if you're going to use that, you want to have something like Purging Flames in there. Where are we? There we go. Purging Flames. So on that, more condition removal. You're just picking an area. You cast everyone in there, as you see by reading it. It'll remove 3 conditions. It's a nice bit of burning, which you have increased damage through your celestial trinkets as well. Okay, and condition duration in general is reduced by 33%. So that's the first guardian, that's the healer support guardian. So the second guardian you want in your groups is the buff support guardian. Now this should generally be your higher end players, a bit less survivability than the healer support build. Same gear, you're wearing the PTV armor and weapons, the same trinkets, all celestial, slight change to the weapons. You're still running staff, the mainstay any guardian, although you'll be running hammer this time. Again, just to go back to the retaliation on Whirling Wrath on the sword on 2, you're not going to be able to counter that damage on this build. You've not got the self-heal capability, so you're going to avoid that. What your role is when you're opening up in combat with Zealot's Embrace, you mob, and then you lock down with your Ringy Warden. Okay, so locking enemies into the spot and mobbing them. Okay, you've also got your Blast Finisher, which is nice damage in there. Try and stay away from the banish unless absolutely needed. You don't want to be punting people out of the kill zone. So looking at the skills, the block skill used previously, not as effective on this build. You can't really recover after you've blocked on it, so you're going to want the signet on there for that big heal when you need it. A bit slower, but it's 8.5k plus on the heal there. You're running 2 shouts. Again, you've got the soldier's runes in the armor, same as the previous build there for that 6 skill. Shouts remove a condition. And the third one, you're going to want Signated Judgment for that 10% incoming damage reduction. This can also be used as a stun breaker as of when is needed. You want to keep it for the passive effect, but if you must, you can use that to break stuns. Reason for that being, when you open up to engage, you are the first guy that's going to use your shout. You're the one that uses the stability as you go into combat, so you're not going to have that stun breaker available when you need it. The elite skill, you're looking at renewed focus. Nice 2 second invulnerability there to get out of damage, and also regenerates your F1 to F3 if that's the keybinds you're using for your virtues. Okay, so the build in general, to go over the synergy, what you are looking at, the 10 in Valor there, that again that's interchangeable. These are 10 free points. The reason I've used it on this one, to go with the passive effect on your Signature Resolve, which cures a condition every 10 seconds, you're also going to want Purity in there. So every 10 seconds you're just passively going to drop 2 conditions. Nice to keep you on the move. The Honour tree is the same as the Heal Support Guardian. You're wanting the full 30 in there. You're going to want the recharge on your shouts. Again, you're running 2 shouts in that build, and you are going to want the two-handed mastery for both your two-handed weapon, your staff and your hammer. The third one is Purity Voice to coincide with your soldier's runes. So every time you use the shouts that you've got 2 of with a reduced recharge, you are going to remove 1 condition from your rune, and you're going to convert another one to a boon through Purity Voice trait. And the big changes come in on the virtue tree here. Okay, so the first one you're going to want in virtues, this is interchangeable. Taking a 25% increase in retaliation vengeful on this build, you're going to have retaliation up when you engage. You see there, that's buffed that up to 6.5 seconds on this build. Nice to have 8 seconds, that was a mistake. It's nice to have the retaliation when you engage, as we discussed with Whirling Wrath and the Greatsword. As the 2 melee balls clash, there's going to be a lot of damage going off. When they hit you, you want them to be taking damage back, so having that retaliation up is ideal, especially for the 8 seconds. So this is used on engagement. As both sides collide, this needs to be up before the enemy starts its control effects on you, so everyone's got stability. Absolute Resolution, this is where this build really comes into play. It's all about the virtues and boon duration. As you see there, you've got 30% on your virtue recharge, and you have an extra 30% on the boon duration. So this one, Absolute Resolution, whenever you activate your Virtue of Resolve, the passive effect removes, the active effect removes 3 conditions. Okay, so, and that is a group buff, so it's 5 by 3. You're removing 15 conditions just by using your F2 there. And the final one is Indomitable Courage. So what you're doing is your F3, your Virtue Courage, the active effect on that when you use it is a 4-second stability. So when you go in, you're using your stand your ground first. Okay, so you've got from this 6.5 seconds of stability, keeps your group going, no control effects. Then you can use your F3 for a further 4 seconds. And the beauty of this build, you've got the reduced recharge on these, so if you burn all your virtues, you use your elite, your renewed focus, you've got a full recharge on these. In effect, within a space of 3-4 seconds, you can actually remove 30 conditions just by using your F2 twice. Okay, plus you've got the additional stability there. As discussed, a lot less survivability. You do need to have your higher end players on this build here. The ones that can get out of damage quickly, they're not going to have the ability to self-heal just like the heal support does, although the buffs are absolutely invaluable to the group. Extra stability, loads of condition removal, also the nice heal on there. One of the heal support guardians per group, and you have a very, very solid melee group if you've got that comprised with 2 warriors. If you can multiply that by 2, have 4 and 4, or even better 6 and 6, then that is your front line absolutely set for organised World v World play. Okay, so now that we've covered the front line in most guilds, we're going to look at the back line, the caster support, which would consist primarily of elementalists and necromancers. We're going to start with elementalists. You're going to want 2, even better if you can have 3 elementalists. All of them should be running staff. Now, these guys need to be very situationally aware. High APM, action per minute players, they're going to be swapping their attunements constantly, they're going to be laying down loads of damage, they're going to be healing the guild run as well. The key to these guys is survivability. That comes down to two things. These guys must live. Getting picked off, being too close to the melee ball is just a no-go. So with that in mind, you're going to take 3 cantrips. Okay, so your skills, Mist Form, get out of jail card plus a stun breaker. You're going to use Armour Earth for the stability plus the protection for damage reduction, another stun breaker, and if you really have to get out of there, a lightning flash just to completely get out of the zone. Also gives you regen and vigor due to traits, which is specific to this build. So when you're playing the Elementalist, what you want to be doing, if this is your melee ball here, you want to be operating at maximum range within a 1000 to 1200 distance, and you are working in a crescent, sorry, a half moon shape behind the melee ball, staying out of trouble. If you have to switch your positions, you're just staying out of danger, staying alive, constantly putting in the pressure, whatever it may be, your casts, switching attunements, getting your slows down there, and on the regroups you'll see how invaluable this is, but I'll cover that in a later episode of this. Okay, so now that you know the premise of your working area and your tasks, we'll go into the gear. The current meta for Elementalists would appear to be full Celestial gear, giving you nice condition, get damage, nice healing power, along with the nice damage. You've got high crit rate, high crit damage on there as well. Sigil wise, excuse me, sigil wise, everyone runs sigil energy. So on your attunement swaps during combat, you will get a 50% increase on the 9 seconds for your endurance, which helps you, keeps you mobile, keeps you dodging, and again synergizes with your build, Evasive Arcana, which we'll show you in a second. So going on to the build, your first 10 points interchangeable. On this one, a bit selfish, gone for Armour Earth, 10 in Earth Magic there. That just means that once your health goes down to 50, you get an Armour of Earth in there, which is a cantrip. The stability, the regen, the protection, which will keep you going, along with the vigor for your endurance regen. A lot of people will run 10 in air magic and use bolt to the heart, which is a skill that gives you increased damage when your opponents are below 33% on their health bar. Now that synergizes very well with what I'm going to show you on the Meteor Shower Tornado for finishing down players, but we'll talk about that in a second. So this here, you're going to be running 30 in water magic. Your first one, reduce recharge on cantrips. You're running 3 cantrips in this build, so really important that you get the cooldown on those. As you see, they're all quite high cooldown apart from lightning flash on your 32 seconds. Interchangeable Soothing Disruption, again went a wee bit selfish here, so that all the cantrips will grant you regen and vigor. A lot of people in this will run the trait that when you switch to water, it will cure conditions on allies. Okay, so you're removing 5 conditions, but on this one here, we've gone with Soothing Disruption to give you the extra self buffs when you're using those 3 cantrips. And the main one, Cleansing Water there, removing condition when granting regeneration to yourself or an ally. You're granting yourself regeneration through all your cantrips, so you're removing conditions passively, and your water skills, if you're granting regeneration with your Healing Rain, you're also going to remove conditions with your skill 5, okay, which is a big part of your healing regroup. Onto Arcana, you're running 30 here, okay, so final shielding, create an arcane shield when your health drops below threshold. Once you hit 25%, you can block the next 3 attacks. Self-survivability is key, as discussed earlier. You must survive as an Ellie. Dead Ellies don't heal, they don't do damage, they can't keep the group up. So final shield in there. Elemental attunement, so when you're tuning to an element, you're granting buffs. So as you see, you're giving yourself might and fury with fire, you're giving yourself speed buffs with your F3, your air, and when you go into earth, you're getting your protection, okay? And if you go back into war, you're granting regen, which the regeneration in your war, that's you keeping your group alive. And the best thing about this build is your evasive arcana. So every time you dodge within the cooldown, which is 10 seconds, will synergize with the extra endurance you're going to get from your energy sigil. You are either going to create a flame burst. The more important one is on the F2 if you're using your water skills. You actually give a burst heal when you dodge. Great for keeping yourself alive as you're on the kite, as you saw there, and you can also close in when your melee ball's retreating and heal them up a small touch on that. Okay, so your main role, other than laying the damage in and healing, when players go down, the melee ball should never be staying constant. If they're standing still to finish players, they are going to lose people themselves, because that's where all the damage is. So while your melee ball is skirting about the perimeter of the enemy, damaging here, moving, damaging here, what you want to be doing on the finished targets, dropping your meteor strike, and then switching into tornado instantly to get the big numbers. You see the increased damage there. Okay, and then you can just come out of that and just finish them off with the rest of your skills, okay? So that's the Elementalist build and the general role of the Elementalist. Just remember, maximum range, getting your casts off and stay alive. That's your main focus. Okay, so the final class in your core setup, the Necromancer. Build-wise, very persistent right throughout all the high-end guilds. They all run roughly the same. Gear changes quite a lot depending on the player's ability, although they seem to be very high damage spec. As a starting off point, I would say that you go with full power, toughness, vitality, armor, and berserker trinkets and weapons to get the damage up. You're going to want to aim for around 25-2600 armor, and you want to be having at least about 24k health, taking buffs into consideration as well. Okay, so rune wise, slight problems with condition removal, so they tend to run Melandru for the reduction on those, the control effects and the conditions themselves. Weapon wise, they all run staff. It's very similar to the Elementalist. You're looking at staying at max range, which will be between 900 and 1200, permitting you will go in towards the melee at certain points in the fight. So, offhands, you're looking at axe and dagger. Okay, dagger, nice 900 things that you can throw in there, bit of bleeding, bit of weakness, and you've also got blindness on that Deathly Swarm, which is really nice synergy with some of the traits I'm going to show you in a second. Axe, more so for when you find yourself in a position, if there's a target low, or if there's other people that have swarmed around you on your flanks, then you can start looking at using these more often. Heal skill is consistent throughout. Consume conditions, big condition removal, and a decent heal on a low cooldown as well. So everyone runs consume conditions, and the elite is also a constant, which is plague, and you'll see why in a second. They all run well builds. Okay, your necro is your heavy artillery, your big cannons, if you will. You're going to want 3 of these guys in your overall build setup, and they should be coordinated through communications, whether it be a separate whisper channel or if they have like a class leader that is calling for spikes. Okay, so going on to the skills themselves. So you've got Welly Suffering, which is your main damage skill, also causes vulnerability. You've got Welly Corruption, which is removing boons on the enemy in the kill zone, and it's turning them into conditions. And the final one, I guess, is interchangeable, but for this build we've put Welly Darkness there for the blindness on the pulse every 3 seconds. Every 1 second there's a pulse. You'll hit 5 targets and they're blinded for 3 seconds. Big damage reduction for your melee ball. So looking at the traits, very standard across the board. You've got 20 incurses, the first one being chill in darkness. Okay, so blinding a target, you'll also chill them. The chill being 66% movement speed, so it's a snare, and 66% on their skill recharge, so they're finding it harder to use their abilities. So they've just been blinded, they're moving slower, and their skills have got a higher recharge time. Now this will proc on 3 different skills. It will proc off your Deathly Swarm on your dagger. Okay, it will proc from your Well of Darkness and your Elite, your Plague. You see there on 2, Plague of Darkness, which is fairly spammable. You are causing blindness, which will also add chill to all these nice effects there. Okay, the second one is Focus Rituals. Well skills use ground targeting. You're going to need that. It's called a well spike. You need to be at range, so you need to use that ground targeting there. Plus it gives you a nice 200 precision and extra 200 condition damage, because you will be doing quite a fair amount of conditions. Onto the blood magic. You are looking at life transfer heals nearby allies. Okay, life transfer is a skill within your Death Shroud in your F1. Okay, there will be certain points, as long as along with your well spike, you can also do a life transfer spike. So once your wells are spent, if you have loads of Death Shroud and it's coordinated, you can skirt in around the perimeter, hit your F4, see the damage there, big damage on the perimeter. You've got 3 necros doing that, mass damage, and you're healing your melee ball, and then you fall back out, get back to your 1200 range. Out with your well spike, out with your plague spike, and out with your Death Shroud spike. Really all you're doing is just chucking in all your wells, all your staff skills. Wee bit of added condition pressure there, some nice damage, some control effects with the fear, just to mess them up a bit, all the while operating same as the Elementalist in your half moon at the back, staying out of trouble, staying out of damage. Okay, back to the traits. Okay, so your transfusion, as we just discussed, your ritual mastery reduces the recharge on the wells. You want to be doing that well spike as often as you can with all 3 your necros. So you're looking at the 28 on the well of suffering, 32 on the corruption, and 40 on the darkness. Quite a decent reduction there. Keeps the damage for each push constant. Soul reaping, you're going to want your 30 on there. It's all about the Death Shroud. That's your defense and your offense capability. Defensive wise, great, an extra HP bar. If you get under pressure, use it, move further back. Plus you've got the offensive spike with it. So reducing the recharge on the Death Shroud skills by 15%, can do everything more often. Near to death, you're reducing the recharge on your Death Shroud by 30%, which is fairly huge. And finally, Foot in the Grave. This is your lifesaver. Necros have a problem with stability. If you're no close to the Guardians, which you're probably not going to be if you're positioned properly, you're not going to be picking up those stability buffs. So whenever you're under pressure, you're taking a bit of damage, you maybe found yourself too close, all you're doing, you're popping in your F1, the stability goes up, you've got 3 seconds to get out of there with no control effects, and you're back to the safe zone, and then you're back to just dropping all your marks in there. Okay, and just to elaborate on the well spike, just to give you an indication of how it works, it would be a case of the class leader, you're on the perimeter, the melee's just moved in to engage, it would be well spike in 3, 2, 1, and then all you're doing is all 3 necros are dropping everything. You see the damage going in there, loads of control effects, you times that by 3, stuff is going to die. Okay, and that's what drops people. The necros are your big damage when coordinated. So that is the final class in your core setup. Everything else, unfortunately, should be added after that. If you can get a Mesmer, great. Rangers, Thieves, and Engineers, sadly, not as needed as the 4 classes we've discussed. Get the basics set up and then start working on the periphery type builds, and that's the end of this episode. You now have a solid core for getting an an organised World v World group together.